Today in the shop, we're going to show some tips for polishing a motorcycle engine, and some of it is going to be with using a new tool we got from Harbor Freight that seems to work real good for getting in every little nook and cranny. And a lot of it, of course, has to be done the old-fashioned way, elbow grease. But when you're done, no matter how you do it, I think you stand back and you look at the result of your work and you realize the gods do see everywhere. Now on today's video, and keep in mind we do post something up every day, today I'm going to try to deal with polishing aluminum, polishing some of the metal parts that we have on the motorcycles, unboxing it at first, and then and share my little passion for collecting t-shirts and for ordering from Amazon and Partzilla. But anyway, and I'll put the link, the hot link, if you decide you'd like to have one. They come in 26 colors too, so we'll get to that. But first I gotta have some coffee, and then we'll get down to shop and do that unboxing. So before we start polishing aluminum, just a couple of the things. A lot of the bikes in my collection, the older bikes, have a lot of aluminum to polish. And so polishing it is only one part of it. Then you have to maintain it. Now a lot of this stuff has been polished, but if you don't do the maintenance on it on a regular basis, it fades away very quickly, and then you have a big job. We try to do it at least once a year, and today is that day. And I think the biggest polishing job I've ever done is, and I did some of it in Luciano's garage when we had this bike all taken apart and right in the very beginning, and polishing the frame and the swing arm and the muffler. It's a lot of work. Modern bikes, not a lot of chrome parts or polished parts, but there are some, and when you do it right, they really, it's like the crown jewel of a motorcycle. So today we're going to try to polish, but let me show that t-shirt first. So this morning it didn't come from Amazon, it came from TeePublic, T-E-E-P-U-B-L-I-C. Now, what John and I have done is we've loaded up the logo up to TeePublic. So what it means is anybody would like to have a shirt. Now I collect t-shirts. I know a lot of people don't know that. I basically had custom shirts made for every single model airplane that I ever competed with at the national championships. Now this, let's see how and this is a real unboxing. John did the Photoshop work on this. Karen and I did some of the artsy stuff. And by the way, this shirt, you can have it printed on front or back, doesn't matter. We are already working on a second logo for a second t-shirt for the FZR. That'll be soon. Now, if you looked at this real close, you'd know John put an incredible amount of time into this logo. I can count the rivets. I can see the dust in the scoops. Every little thing here. This is really, really a nice t-shirt. Now, I like to have these hanging up in my shop, and I have quite a collection. I actually have them for all the Ferrari bikes. I have them for, oh my God, for the GS and for all the two-strokes, everything. I've enjoyed this. This is now part of that collection, and I think that really looks cool. That's a cool shirt. Karen fell in love with it when we did the logo. And John Pothier, thank you very much. Now, the whole point is I'll put it in the hot link. The hot link will go right to, if you wanted to get one of these. In the past, when we've had FZR shirts and GS shirts, people, we've gotten them, and we've gotten them from the AMA, and it was really cumbersome. This is a quick 2 mouse clicks and you got a shirt. And they come in 26 colors. And what you see if you hit the hot link, it'll take you right to here, to the TeePublic. And there's other things you can get, coffee cups and hats and stuff. And the shirts are available in 26 colors. And they're available front and back, and you can get hoodies in case you want to rob a bank, or coffee cups if you want to try to have a contest with me who can drink the most coffee. Anyway, just thought you'd enjoy seeing that, but it's time to get polishing some aluminum here. And as I said, John is working on a new, an updated FZR logo for our next t-shirt, and we're going to be doing some more in the near future. We'll keep you abreast. This is one of the tools we're going to be using today, and it works off air pressure. So if you have a decent sized compressor, even a small compressor, you just let it catch up on the air, just like spraying. The little polishing pads are available. Again, everything's from Harbor Freight. And it's a good idea to put a couple of drops of oil in here from time to time. That lubricates the bearing that's up there. Anyway, but this is a tool And this is I wanted to show some do's and don'ts with this tool, because this is a very, very powerful tool. Now, when you're polishing aluminum, a lot of times it gets frustrating. It's not getting shinier and shinier, and you start pressing harder and harder, and you build up a lot of heat. Well, if you do that on a painted surface, you burn the paint. Now, just as an example, if I'm using this, even at a low speed, and I'm doing paint, not a good idea. This really is, it's too powerful, and it takes off too much material, and most of all, it builds up too much heat. So what I suggest this is, just keep it for polishing aluminum, and even better for what I'm doing today, refreshing polished aluminum. That's where this really shines. Now, you always wonder, and everybody always thinks, and this is really funny, there's some kind of magic polish that there really isn't. What's in all polishes is grit. The grit can be anywhere from 3,500, 4,000, 4,500. Flitz is 6,000, and at Flitz is not rated as a polish. So when you see the word polish, you know it's less than 6,000 grit. So 6,000 grit means this is gonna take a nice. It's going to be nice on aluminum. It's going to be good on steel, on titanium. This is probably the all-around everything polish, and you can even use it to pull scratches. I think you can even pull scratches out of plexiglass with this. I don't know, but I do it by hand, not with a high-speed tool like this, a very powerful tool. Now, what makes this tool even more useful, because it's a 90-degree, it lets you get in areas in between exhaust pipes and stuff that a normal buffer, where the buffer is out on the end, it's very difficult to do that. But this is the go-to polish. If you don't have any other polish to deal with, this is a good one. So once you've really polished something and it's really nice and shiny, you want to keep it that way. The best way, and this is the best wax. This came from Joe Padula, and this is the best wax I've used on paint. I've used it on the back wheels of the MT-09 when we had all that salt. The salt wiped right off. It was beautiful. This is really a good protective wax. I'm trying to put this, but it's hard to focus on this. They want you to put this on with a microfiber, let it dry, and then wipe it off with a clean microfiber. But anyway, this really is good stuff, and I really appreciate, Joe, that you've donated it to our cause. And I have been using this on the bikes regularly. It makes keeping them clean a piece of cake. The final thing you need is microfibers. Now, there's inexpensive microfibers, and these are some. I don't go by this anymore. I can just feel them. Now, then you have the medium ones, and this is like a medium. I don't know, it's fluffy, not quite as fluffy as you think it is. But then there's I call them the really good ones. And these actually Dale donated these. I'm trying to look for the label on these. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You can tell how fluffy and how thick they are. These are for the final polishing. And if you have some that are already been used, I wash them regularly. And there are grades of microfibers. They need to be washed. I wash them in simple green, by the way. If you keep them clean, they last a long time. But you always want to have, when you do the final polishing, you want to have one that's relatively new and has no little bugs or grit or anything in it, so you don't put a scratch in that final polish shine. So these are the things we need. Time to get out to the garage and polish some aluminum. So this is a common thing with any motorcycle that you don't have in a environmentally controlled, which I don't, of course. And this is, they're always dealing with all winter and in humid weather, the moisture. Now, the moisture, before you can do any polishing, I like to get the moisture off. It's just a question of a few minutes with a damp rag. And so I can see where I need to polish the most. And it's really not a rocket science thing to figure this out, but I'd like to start with the part I need to do that you're going to see the most. So on this type of bike, you see the side covers, top of the engine, the exhaust, and of course on this bike it has polished forks. So just getting off all the moisture first on a day like this that I want to polish, this would be job one. And right away, the first thing you notice with this tool, you'll get a headache from it if you don't have ear protection. Number two, it does take material off very quickly, so you've got to be a little judicious with it. And if you have a big compressor, It'll work like a big powerful tool. If you have a little baby compressor, not so much. Anyway, I have both big compressors and small compressors. And for me, doing this kind of work, and I'm going to have to do the voiceover because this tool is so loud. That's one of the downsides of this tool. It is loud. Now, it doesn't matter what polish you use. It's really the Meguiar's, the Mothers. You can use the 4CR. All of the polishes seem to work good on aluminum. Maybe some a little bit better, but I find they all work pretty good. Now, when I first got this tool, the first thing I found, it was so handy because you can get in little nooks and crannies. You can get in places that a big hand buffer can't go, or even worse, a big car buffer. So any little detailing, it's super good for detailing. Now, the tool is also very lightweight, and so it tends not to wear your arm out like a heavy car buffer does. If you've ever had to use a heavy car buffer for an hour or so, you know your arm gets tired. This is a very nice little tool, kind of like a Dremel tool on steroids. And what I like to do is after each little area, get a clean microfiber and get in all the corners and edges. Get off any of the compound that still remains. Now keep in mind this is a 40-year-old motorcycle that's been pretty well maintained with 73,000 miles on it. And the thing you don't want to do is get a rag that's got all little grease or dirt or dust or little stones or something on it and put a scratch in that final polished surface after all the work it takes to get it nice like that. Now I've put a lot of this in fast forward because otherwise the video is going to wind up being too long, and I want to include some special stuff at the end that I've been saving. But using this tool, the first couple times I used it, I got very comfortable with it very quickly, and it made the maintenance of one of the older bikes with a lot of aluminum pretty painless. And every time I get done with one part, one step, I like to stand back, look at it, make sure I haven't missed any spots, or in the worst thing, leave some compound on it. Just makes it look like that you were drinking coffee while you were doing this, extra coffee. Anyway, I like to look at the product. It's a nice compliment to our custom painted wheels that are on previous videos, and as a unit, it starts to really shape up. And what's nice about this, you don't have to do the whole bike in one shot. You can do a little bit each time you want to work on it or clean it up, and in the meantime, it's just going to be nicer and nicer and nicer every time you add one part to the I just polished it list. And for my purposes, it'll stay that way almost all summer. And I really do enjoy having a clean bike. And a lot of times I tell people that are new to motorcycling, this is a 40-year-old bike. And the first thing is, they don't believe me. And since I've had this bike since it was brand new, it's a one owner, and I really want to keep it basically forever. The thought of not having it in my collection is pretty depressing. And I'm willing to put the work in. It's easy to say that, and it's easy to talk the talk, but I really want to also walk the walk. Now later on in the video, I'm going to show from older videos that are still out on my channel in complete form. I'm going to take some outtakes of other tools that I've used and tools that have made maintaining these older motorcycles just so much easier. Can you imagine if the only thing you could do is polish this stuff by hand? You'd be really you'd be in trouble probably. Anyway, these tools we have, modern tools, make it easy. Now, it's always a good feeling to me as you see one part at a time coming to fruition here. The side cover's coming out nice. And I like to see my reflection of my beautiful shoes in the parts. Actually, what I always look for, the view of what's reflecting in the really polished part. And same thing with paint. I like to see the reflection. I know I've got it pretty well polished anyway. And you got to keep in mind, this is not a brand new motorcycle, and it does have a lot of miles on it. And after I get the parts polished to where I'm happy with them, I get the colloidite wax, one rag to put it on, let a nice coat of it on, like with any carnauba wax type of product. Let it sit and dry. It dries to a haze. Give it a minute or so. In warm weather, it dries very quickly. Cold weather takes a little bit longer. And then this is my other great tip, and I've showed this many times on any of the air-cooled bikes. Take a paint stick, a paint stirring stick, which you can get for free, and just put a microfiber around it with a little bit of that, any of the kind of polish on it, or no polish at all, just clean up. Especially if you have little tiny places where it might be seeping oil or something like that. This really gets rid of it right away. It's really, that is one of the better tips that's been on many of my videos. Now I have a lift, but for these purposes, getting underneath here takes 5 minutes. The paint stick allows it to get down in by the oil pan and all of the other stuff. And if it takes me longer to get the bike on and off the lift than it does to do the job. So a lot of times I just do this just to make it quick and dirty. Look at the reflection in that side cover. That's pretty cool. Anyway, these are just some of the things, and I'm going to reference. I have a couple of things that I want to include on this video that come from older videos. They're right at the end. I've included them on, and I think they're excellent tips if you're looking to polish aluminum or really polish anything, especially a motorcycle engine. So that was pretty much what I would do every springtime, just to clean off the oxidation from sitting in a damp garage all winter. I call that a refresh polish. In the future, we're going to be doing it again whenever necessary. But I like this motorcycle is 40 years old now, and I try to maintain it as good as I can. Put the Colonite wax on it, polish the aluminum parts, and it has served me well. I don't regret any of that time I've done either restoring it or keeping it like this. It's got over 73,000 miles now, and it is still a blast to ride. Now, no polishing video is complete without a reference to Flitz. I have the Flitz system, the buffing ball, and Flitz, and it's all on a dedicated video. You can reference my name in quotation marks and the word Flitz. And if you're serious about polishing aluminum, this is a great product, and that buff and ball works great. Now, on these Flitz videos that I did, they show a very detailed way of comparing how different polishes work and how Flitz works and how that buff and ball works. And then later on in the video, how you can use it to polish motorcycle parts. Some really good information on that video. And the buff and ball is so useful. You just can't imagine until you have one. And all this stuff is available right from Flitz, F-L-I-T-Z. Look at the shine on those side covers. Pretty cool. Now keep in mind with the Flitz products, they're 6,000 grit. They're not really sold as polishes. But if you use that buff and ball the way they show you and the way the instructions show, and by the way, you can buy little tubes of this if you just want to test it. You don't have to buy a quart can like I did. But it really does work well. And boy, when you want to see some piece of aluminum on your bike really shine, that's great. And by the way, one of the things that's really good about this, it's supposed to leave 6 months of protection on the aluminum parts you polish. So obviously what you would want to do is polish everything, get it shiny, get it as polished as you can, and then at the very end, put a coat of Flitz on it, either by hand or with the buffing ball. And that's what I've done, and that's what's helped me maintain these older motorcycles like the RD with the air-cooled engine. Some of the bikes that have a lot of these polished parts, not only polishing them, once you polish them, you have to maintain them, and Flitz is a good product. Now the way I deal with the fins on an air-cooled engine, like the RD, like the GS, a nail file, an old nail file, of which Karen has plenty, radius it off nice and smooth. The finer the grit, the better. And then you can polish it any number of ways. Dremel tool is very good and useful, or an electric drill with a buffing ball. And usually these air-cooled engines are the focal point of the motorcycle, and just cleaning them up, polishing them, you can do it on a rainy day when you can't ride. I showed on several of the videos now with these I bought these from Amazon, very inexpensive, that go in a Dremel tool. how you can use them to clean up the fins, make the fins very, very attractive, even if you don't polish them with compound. They just leave a nice, fresh aluminum coat on it. The little Harbor Freight Dremel tool that was under $20, I've used that over and over and over so many times. And if you just attack this, like, you don't have to do the whole bike in one day. You can do one side of the engine. You can do one part of the engine. But little by little by little, what happens is as you do it, you can see the reflection in the fins of the engine. You start getting excited about having this nice, really crystal clean looking bike. And you know what? In my case, because I do all my own work, having a bike that's nice and clean is a lot more fun to work on than a grease pit. Now again, at the end, whether you use the Dremel tool, whether you use an electric drill, some other tool, power tool, or that air tool that I showed earlier in the video, the tool is just a way to help you. Now at the end of it, when everything is polished nice, now the last step, of course, is always that coat of Flitz, and you can put it on by hand, and you can buff it by hand. Just like paint, you can use machines, you can use the system by hand, or some combination of both. Now in my case, having an engine in the RD and the GS all polished up, it's fun to work on something that's nice and clean, and it isn't dripping and drooling and oozing, and so every time you clean it, it's at least with the products I've shown on this video, it's nicer and more shiny and cleaner and everything than the time before. And it just makes it, if you're going to have a hobby of working on motorcycles or whatever, just makes it a lot more fun. In my case, really a lot more fun. And the last thing I wanted to show that's a useful tool is an ordinary drill. Again, this is a Harbor Freight drill. I know some people like to use battery-powered drills, but I like the one with the cord. And all the little pads that go on the end of the drill you can get at Harbor Freight very inexpensively. It's good to get big ones, short ones. You can get 6, 8, 10 of them for so little money, and they never wear out. The more you use them, the better they are. They get better and better with age. And in fact, I just gave Luciano my favorite buffing wheel. I'm hoping he's going to start buffing. But anyway, all beside the point, this is an older video that I made a very long time ago without any edit cuts in it even. I just wanted to show. Back then, I was polishing here. We had the West Cooley bodywork on the bike, the gold wheels. And this is the same bike, by the way. It's an Evil Twin. Here's the little pointy tip tool that you can get from Harbor Freight. You just go to the rack where they sell the stuff. And again, none of it, the beautiful part is none of it is big money. And if you're doing this for a hobby, those tools are certainly good enough. Here's the big one, the big flat polisher. It's good for polishing those. Actually, it's good for polishing a car even. And the polishes that you can use, any of the polishes, that I haven't found a bad polish yet, but for sure, all of them seem to polish the aluminum. But the final thing is, at the very end of it, when you're all done polishing it, even if you're not going to put Flitz as the final thing, you don't use the Flitz, put some wax on it, and the Colonite is good, or any real Carnauba wax, because otherwise it doesn't last through the summer, and 2 months later it starts getting dull again, because this is aluminum. This is not chrome. It's not like chrome. Chrome doesn't need to be polished constantly, which is the whole purpose of chrome. But it doesn't have the look of polished aluminum. Now look at the reflection in that side cover. That's just one example. Now that, and I go back to the days when the Triumphs and BSAs, they had the side covers all polished up, and that just is great memories. The RD guys all had these little contests who could polish up the engine the best. And the GSs, of course, are, to me, that engine in a GS is something that belongs in an art museum. That is just a beautiful, beautiful piece of equipment, and I'm so happy that this one has stood the test of time as well as it does. I hope I stood the test of time too. So I hope there was some useful information on this, or maybe some inspiration that you'll run out to the garage and polish the engine of your bike. These older bikes with the aluminum on both sides of the engine, they need to be polished to be beautiful. Now, we try to post up a new video every day, and we're pretty successful at that. We've got 2,500 videos out there right now relating to motorcycle, painting, polishing, I always use my small collection of motorcycles, 7 registered, 9 total, to try to share the passion I have for motorcycling. I have had basically for my whole life, and I'm going to be 77 this summer. So maybe by the time you watch this, I'll be 90. I don't know. But anyway, it is a wonderful sport. Ride safe and enjoy the motorcycles. I enjoy working on them every bit as much as I enjoy riding them, but I would never want to work on them without being able to ride them. Riding them is why we have them. And thanks so much for watching.